Hello, everyone. Here we are at the Federal University of Bahia at the graduate program in food science in the course Topics in Food Science. I'm Professor Nelson Colauto, responsible for this course, and this is part of the initiative of internationalize the graduate program in food science. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Professor Ofira Ayalon with an important topic from Haifa, Israel. Professor Ayalon is from the Faculty of Food Engineering, and she's specializing in environmental and waste management and policy. Is member of the Department of Natural Research and Environmental Management since 2001. And she has as research interests, environment management, waste management and reducing food loss, energy policy, climate change, adaptation and mitigation, reduction of greenhouse gas emissions through energy efficiency and renewable energy. Professor Ayalon, please be welcome, and the food is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity, and good afternoon to you. Good evening to me. I'm in Israel. So we are 6-7 hours apart or something like that.
6 hours, I think.
6 hours apart.
Yeah.
So as the professor said, I'm a food engineer by profession, and then my master's and PhD, I shifted to waste management. And these days, I'm studying the issue of minimizing food waste, and I'm going back to the origins of food science. So I'm closing the loop in my professional life. As to this presentation, I thought of focusing at the beginning of the issue of how we produce the food and the challenges that food production faces due to climate change. So, and I'm going to emphasize the Israeli perspective because and I will talk about it later on. Here in these photos, you can see, women working at the harbor at the beginning of the country, like 75 years ago. They are sorting the oranges. And this drone here is the, the state-of-the-art agriculture that is being done these days. We no longer sort the oranges by hand, okay? So it's all automated and robotics and all these issues. And I will show you that since Israel is a country in need, the needs were the ones to drive the country to do things, to develop things, to invest in entrepreneurship, to invest in issues that will promote the country. So now I have to let's start with a big picture. I hope you can see it okay on the screen. Yeah. So the big picture is that we have a world and a lot of people in this world that we need to feed. That's the main challenge that we are facing. So we know that the world population is developing and expanding. And we are going to see something like 9 billion people on this planet in 2050. We are becoming richer, and if we are becoming richer, we want more, we eat more, so there is an increase in food demand. We all want to eat well, we want to eat nutritious food, and therefore we need to supply food security. Another challenge is the issue of urbanization. If like 20, 50, 70, 100 years ago, we had a little farm, we grew our lettuce, we grew our animals, we grew everything we needed to eat, and we ate it. But with this issue of urbanization, and with the estimation that in 2050, more than 70% of the population will live in cities, you can imagine the challenges of producing food in one place and transfer it, and using transportation, whether it is land transportation, aviation, or marine transportation to move the food. So this is another challenge. And of course, since we are facing also climate change, and we are facing the shorten or the less land available to grow crops, and we want to reduce costs, and we want to reduce water used to grow our food, and we want to reduce emissions, and we want to reduce diseases, and we want to reduce energy consumed by our food production. These challenges are very, very important for us to understand how to produce our food. This is a graph that was formed by the Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, back in 2021. And you can see here the differences in food insecurity. You can see that in the entire, the average in the entire world back in 2020 is that 11% of the population of the world is suffering from severe food insecurity. An additional 18% are suffering from moderate food insecurity. And if we look to Africa, then the numbers are much bigger. And if we look at Northern America and Europe, of course, the figures are much smaller. And if we look at Latin America and the Caribbean, you can see that we are altogether facing 40% of the population suffering from both moderate and severe food insecurity. This is quite a challenge to cope with. Now, we know this graph from 2006. This is the Stern review conducted for the IPCC, the International Panel for Climate Change. If you don't understand or know any term that I'm using, please ask so you don't, lose me on the way. So if you see this graph showing that if the temperature of the world will increase in 1 degree Celsius, then it will be possible that the rising yields will be affected. Because of higher concentration of CO2, we might expect that the crops will grow faster. But in other places, especially in developing regions, we are facing lack of water, we are facing lack of heat, and therefore we might expect falling crop yields. So you can see it can be a rising, it can be falling crops when it comes to food. I will show you some figures later. When it comes to water, we know that we have water issues. We have droughts, we have floods, We have sea level rise, and you can see that when the temperature is getting higher and higher, then the effects are turning from yellow, which is moderate, to red, which is very, very acute and very problematic. Also, with the ecosystem defense and ecosystem services that we are getting from nature, again, when we are the temperature rising, then we might face extinction of many species. The extreme weather events, and it is important to emphasize that it is not only heat. It can be heat, it can be cold, it can be droughts, it can be fires, it can be storms, it can be El Nino, it can be El Niña. So we have this chaos when we're talking about climate and its effect on our food production. And of course, we have other risks that are associated with this climate change. We are now about here. So the average increase in temperature in the world is something about 1.1 degrees Celsius compared to the beginning of the Industrial Revolution back in 1870, something like that. So, and we can no longer think that this is not our responsibility and this is not our fault. So, because if we're looking at the IPCC reports, we can be sure that this is mostly because of fossil fuel that we are using in order to run our engines, our transportation, our airplanes, our machinery to produce the food. And it's not doubtful anymore that this increase in CO2 emissions and this climatic chaos is because of us. So we are about here. And when we are talking about climate, we're talking about two aspects. One is adaptation to climate change. That is, how are we supposed to grow our food when it comes to droughts and floods and heat and cold waves? And it's not, of course, not only the food production, but it's all the supply chain of the food. Because now if the temperature are higher and we now want to import, Israel, for example, imports, I think, most of its beef from Argentina, okay? Now think of the impact of now transferring a frozen beef from Argentina to Israel. If the temperatures are very high outside, then we need to invest more energy in order to keep this beef frozen. Okay, so we need to invest more energy in order to bring this food safely to Israel. And now we're talking about also, wheat and vegetables and you name it. So just think of the effects of high temperature on the supply chain of food. So this is a challenge that we need to face. So this is adaptation. Adaptation can be, for example, having a more investing more energy in cooling our systems and isolation and all these issues. And the other aspect is mitigating greenhouse gases emission. That is reducing greenhouse gases emissions, for example, by using water more efficiently, by using energy more efficiently, by using renewable energy, by using producing fertilizers in a more sustainable way, in a way that we produce less CO2 emissions. All the issue of electrification is also a process that instead of using fossil fuels, we are producing electricity from the sun or from hydro, as you do in Brazil, and wind, and you name it, as a renewable resource. And now we're looking for better ways to produce the food in order to mitigate greenhouse gases, to reduce greenhouse gases. And in some cases, there is a complete link between mitigation and adaptation. Because if we're talking about smart irrigation, for example, when we want to, to grow crops, the smart irrigation is good also for adaptation, because we are using the water more efficiently, and we're mitigating greenhouse gases emissions because we're using less water. So we need to invest less energy to produce this water and do it properly. Of course, climate change has also a financial challenge, and it imposes a financial risk. The OECD is conducting a lot of studies trying to analyze the risks and the policy needed in the spectrum of financial issues when it comes to climate change. Also, climate change has a health threat. And we also, I quoted this phrase from the World Health Organization back in 2021. May I remind you that 2021 was the COVID year, and still the World Health Organization said that climate change imposes even a bigger threat on health than COVID. And we can see these figures about, floods and about fires and monsoons and catastrophic weather events. And we all know that the extreme weather events are now the new normal. So we are now at mid-June. It's supposed to be summer in Israel. It's raining outside. It's raining, and it never rains in June. So it's very important to understand these issues. Again, you can see this figure back in 2021 in the US. Look at all these weather-related catastrophes, whether it is fires or floods or thunderstorms or hurricanes or floods. So you can see that this is billions of dollars damages related to climate. Now let's dive into the situation in Israel. So Israel is a country in the Middle East, and this country is an island of water, an island of energy, and of course it's constantly under military threat. We are not geographically an island because we have neighbors, but politically we are an island. So we cannot take electricity from our neighbors. We cannot import water from our neighbors. We need to supply all our needs ourselves. Israel used to be a food island, but currently, I will show you the figures, something like 50% of the food that we're consuming is imported. So since Israel is a water island, when the country was founded and the water issue was very, very dominant, how all these parts of the, can you see my mouth here? Yeah. So all these parts of the country are complete desert. And how do you move water? And this is the Sea of Galilee. How do you move water from this northern parts, the rainy parts? How do you move the water down? How do you carry the water down? You carry the water by the national water carrier that was built more than 60 years ago. So the country understood the need to bring water to the southern part. Here from the Dead Sea, we cannot use the water because the water is very salty and we cannot use it. It's like the Salar or other places of very salty water. So this is something that we cannot use. So you can see this web of water carriers that are actually bringing water to all the parts of the country. And because of the scarcity, because of the need, because of the threat of climate change, we have developed many technologies related to water. And of course, we need water also to drink our coffee, but also to grow our crops, okay, for the agriculture. So currently, 86% of the wastewater in Israel are collected, treated in wastewater treatment facilities, and are going back for irrigation to agriculture. Israel is the first and the leading country in reclaiming wastewater. The second country after Israel is Spain, with 17% of reclaiming wastewater. So we are world leaders in this issue. We have developed the drip irrigation. Instead of flooding our fields, we are using a very precise irrigation and with a drip irrigation, and you can see this, this is a very good business for Netafim, this drip irrigation. And also because of the shortage in water, because of climate change, because of lack of, natural waters, we are taking water from the sea, we are desalinating the water, and currently more than 60% of our domestic water are coming from the sea. So I open the tap at home and this is seawater desalinated. So these three outcomes of the need, of the scarcity, are really putting the state of Israel as a leading country when it comes to water. And of course, if you know that, I think that more than 80% of the water, of the wastewater are, I'll put it in a different way. More than 80% of the water used for irrigating agricultural produce are from wastewater. This is, of course, requires very strict regulations. It requires very strict, environmental inspections that the crops will not be, infected with something. So we need to follow the regulations. And if we look at the opportunities, so you can see that these water technologies are relevant to many issues like irrigation and water safety and domestic applications, desalination and wastewater, as I said before. And another problem that Israel is facing is the fact that we are an energy island. And also here you can see our first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion, back in 1955, saying that the sun is our best resource and we need to use it. And the government of Israel, led by this Prime Minister, really put the issue of bringing the sun and making benefits from the sun. And Israel was the first country in the world to set in a regulation that every household in Israel should have this water heater, solar water heater on the rooftop. And we're conserving, due to this development, we're conserving 3% of our electricity demand, because we don't need to put on the electricity, because the sun is the one who is warming our water. So a lot of developments regarding energy are also very important to develop the country, to develop the agriculture, to develop the system here in Israel. So you can see here, this is a map that was released only last week of all the companies that are dealing with the energy sector in Israel. So you can see many companies, you don't have to go, you can find them online if you wish. But you can see that we're dealing with generation of electricity, with transmission, with issues of behind the meter. So it's all kind of technologies that after the electricity was supplied to you, then you can make all kinds of technologies to reduce the energy consumption in your plant or house, or you name it. We're talking about storage of energy, we're talking about hydrogen, we're talking about waste to energy, and also about the CCUS, that is carbon capture, utilization, and storage. So these technologies are technologies that are absorbing CO2 from the air and doing something with it. So it's utilization and storage of carbon dioxide, of course. As I said before, we are also facing constantly military threats, and this is also a boost for innovation. And you can see here another map of startups dealing with artificial intelligence, dealing with issues of cyber. And if we're talking about water systems, if we're talking about energy systems, if we're talking about agricultural systems, and now everything is automated, everything is controlled by computers. So we also have this issue of cyber and cyber attacks. So all these companies were really companies that developed because of this military threat, and really developed, and they now produce products that are applicable to many applications. Israel, I showed you before that the world, the average warming of the world is 1.1 degrees Celsius. Israel is a hotspot. So on top of all our problems that I showed you before, we are also facing the problems of being a hotspot of increasing temperatures. And you can see here that we are more than, and you can see these temperatures here, we are now facing the 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to the 1.1 that I showed you before. So Israel is a very hot country, and the weather events and this chaos is even bigger when we're talking about Israel. A short story about the watermelon. A couple of years ago, you used to go to the supermarket and buy a watermelon, and you couldn't eat it. It wasn't sweet. And I asked, I have good friends at the Ministry of Agriculture, and I said, why can't we eat these watermelons? They are so red and nice and smiling and everything is nice. But when you want to eat it, it's not sweet. And they started to look for an explanation, and the explanation that they found is that the average temperature at that period when this watermelon was grown, the average temperature during the night in summertime, because here watermelons grow in summer, the average temperature was 1 degree higher than the average. So this means that this watermelon, it was too hot for him, for it. I don't know how, or for her. I don't know if a watermelon is a she or it, never mind. But it was too hot, and the watermelon had to breathe heavily, because you know, when you're hot, you're breathing in more effectively or more intensely. And when this watermelon breathes, it consumes the sugar out of this watermelon. So you have an impact of this high temperature, the increased breathing of this watermelon. The result is that you grow watermelons, you cannot eat the watermelons, you put the watermelons in the landfill, because this is what we do in Israel. 80% of the waste goes to a landfill. It emits methane because of the anaerobic processes in the landfill that increase the greenhouse gases effect, or the greenhouse effect, okay? So we are creating with this an intermobilization of the process, because we cannot eat this watermelon. So this is very important to understand, that climate change and the increasing temperatures are very, very effective, and they affect heavily this agricultural produce. So in Israel, we have a government insurance fund that pays the farmers compensation if they are facing natural risks. And as you can see from their report in 2020, they had to pay 4 times more compensation to those who grow olives because of high temperatures. So it's 4 times as the average payment for olive growers. It was twice, the compensation was twice for fruit growers, twice as much for field crops. And this was due to low yields related to high temperatures. If you grow, for example, apples, you need to have some cold quarters. They didn't have, these apples didn't have these cold quarters, so they didn't develop. So we didn't have any apples. So again, compensation. Lack of rain. So a lot of money goes to compensate the farmers because they could not deliver the amount, the usual amount of fruits and vegetables that they want and need to supply. Agriculture can positively affect the reduction of greenhouse gases. We discussed it briefly before. We can use electricity or energy in the agriculture sector more effectively. We can use fertilizers more effectively. And this is, I told you that Israel is not a food island anymore. So you can see here that we are importing pears and onions and garlic and apples. So you can see the entire amount of imported fresh fruits and vegetables that we are bringing to Israel. And of course, importing food, even though we are not a food island, importing food is, of course, not a very good option Because, for example, if you look at what happened during COVID-19, the problem with the supply chains due to the COVID, we see now the war of Ukraine and Russia. We are very much dependent on the Ukraine wheat. We cannot import wheat now from the Ukraine because of the war. We were talking about climate change a lot. We're talking about, of course, costs, because if you have to import onions instead of growing them yourself, then the costs are higher. We have issues of dietary demands. We have the issue of pest control. For example, tomatoes coming from Turkey to Israel, imported from Turkey to Israel. There is a need to really a thorough pest control, because the regulation in Turkey do not demand such an a very specific pest control. So there is a problem with that. So the issue of importing food is also problematic. So it's not so good to rely on imports when it comes to food production. And you can also, I put something here about the garlic coming from China. We used to grow all the garlic to our, self growers. Because of political issues, all these issues, garlic is now coming from China. And as you can see in this article here, this garlic, it has less vitamin C, less vitamin B6, and other minerals. So the quality, the nutritious quality of this garlic is lower when you import it from China, for example. But when you have a need, this is where you can develop. So all these issues of precision agriculture, to irrigation, to fertilization, we now have the ability with remote sensing to have these drones over the agricultural field, and know that this part of the field, you have some animals eating it, or some a bee, all kinds of an illness in the field. And then you can send a specific drone and spray the specific site that is exposed to the infection, instead of, spraying the entire field. So this is, of course, to use less pesticides, and of course to cause less harm to the environment. Of course, the issue of big data, the simulations, the all this blend of soil, plant, water, fertilizer to make it a better one. The issue of robotics, the issue of nano fertilization, and nano addition to the soil in order to improve the soil properties. So this is something that we are working on. And as you can see, if we look at the Agro Technologies map of Israel, you can see that it is, again, a very diverse ecosystem dealing with precision agriculture and animal agriculture and biotechnology and farming systems and robotics and supply chain as well. And when we're talking about biotechnology, we are also talking about, maybe I have it on the next slide, we're talking about all the alternative proteins. And this is also something that the State of Israel is very proud of. We know that, growing beef and cattle and you name it, is a very serious source of greenhouse gases emissions. And if we are to change our diet, but we still want high quality proteins, then we have all this issue of alternative proteins. So we are also dealing with that systems, and they are part of this innovation in agriculture. We have more than 400 companies that are dealing with this issue of smart farming and crop management, and you name it. And again, you can see here also the alternative proteins that we are very proud of. And this is maybe the horizon of the new agriculture and the new diet that we are going to eat in the next decades. So again, as I said before, when we're talking about agricultural technologies or climate technologies that either reduce greenhouse gases emissions or address the impacts and help us to adapt to climate change. So these are the issues that we need to deal with. It's the mobility, it's the energy, it's the food that we're producing, the industry, the built environment, and of course the financial services as well. And if we're talking about climate innovation in Israel, you can see again that we're talking about energy and about carbon technologies and water solutions and food and land use and cleaner production, transportation. So again, this map is, just a way to show all these issues that arose because of the needs. We are facing a need, and this is why we have such an amazing arena of more than 800 companies that have solutions to climate issues. If you look at the World Economic Forum, again, you can see that all this agriculture, food and beverages are linked to many, many issues like sustainable consumption and global food systems and health and wellness and demographic changes and resilience of the food system and food security, the resources sustainability, the empowered consumers. So we have these entire shape or entire togetherness of these issues. So to conclude, climate change is here, and it is already affecting each and every one of us. It is imposing environmental, social, and economic threats, and it is quite understandable now that the long-term effects are uncertain, but they are certain to increase. So we know it can be. So this is why we're using scenarios. If you heard about RCP 4.5 or RCP 8.5, I'm not going to go into that, but this is why we need to use scenarios. But in all the scenarios, it is suspected to grow and to increase. And of course, when we're talking about climate change, it can be something that we can use for alternatives and look for alternatives. And this thing here is not a milk. This is a remilk. This is a startup that is based on yeasts, that they ferment yeasts, and they produce an animal-free milk with the same protein content as in milk. And people who are allergic or sensitive to lactose have no problem with this milk. no cholesterol in this milk, and there are no hormones in this milk. So this is the way we should look at the future of our food. How to produce good food with less resources, safe food, and with emitting less greenhouse gases, not having to milk the cow and stuff like that. That's it. So if you have...
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Professor Ofira Ayalon, for your time, for sharing all this knowledge and your perspective and your knowledge about your own country and all the situation. It was very interesting to know, because we heard by news and from all other colleagues about what's going on in other countries, but when we see from somebody that's from that country, is much more accurate and give a overall perspective that is much more interesting. That was very nice. Thank you very much for that. And the students must raise hands, and I'll nominate each student to questions now. Lais, your question, your first question. Maybe you can open the bate-papo público, Professor Ayalon, and it could be writing as well. Then a question.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Hello, Professor. My name is Lais. Thank you for lecture. My question is chat, but speak English. Qual technology usada em agricultura, em especial in water desalination, and this making the final product more expensive, correct? How to
look?
No,
this question, not necessarily, but you have to understand that we have no alternative. Otherwise, we will not be able to drink, to shower, to whatever. So we need this desalination. We don't have rain, okay? So it's not even a matter of money, okay? You just need it. And as I said before, the desalinated water are used for the homes. Okay, we use it at home, and then we use the water. We shower, we wash our dishes, and then it goes to a wastewater treatment facility, and then it goes to the agriculture sector. So we are using this water twice. So when you calculate the cost for 1 cubic meter that we desalinated, we also drink it, and we also water irrigation, water the agriculture. So it's a double.
Okay. Continua, Roberto.
Okay, thank you. Finish. Fechou, Laís? Ok. Agradeço.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, thank you. Now I think some of the students that was in the queue I have dropped it. Please join again with your questions. Now is Stephanie, please.
Stephanie. Stephanie, my question, has the drip irrigations been used as an alternative? Yes. Till today, I think that 50, 60, 70% of the agriculture in the world is based on flooding. So you take a lot of water, you flood the field, and this is a waste of water. Now, the issue of drip irrigation has penetrated to many countries, especially countries that are suffering from droughts, countries that are suffering from, less rain and, fresh water coming. So also, I think that in California, for example, it's like in Israel. Most of the agriculture is based on drip irrigation. Even in China, many places are now using drip irrigation because it saves money, because it saves water, so it saves money.
Thank you.
Right. Yes, the drip irrigation is used in Brazil as well, and but in Brazil, 7% of the water used is for agriculture, not industry, not consumption. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And we do that because we have a lot. That's the point. It's cheaper, it's easier, and then it's just specific cultures that will use irrigation. Just to give an example, the discharge of water in the ocean when at the end of a river as a Thames, it's equivalent. The discharge of the Amazon River of water in one day is equivalent of 1 year of the Thames River in London. That's the amount of water available. That is just a different reality.
Yeah, a completely different reality. Yeah.
Okay, Johnny Elton, do you have a question, please?
Yes, I put my question in the chat. Thank you, Dr. Ayalon, for the lecture. My question is, how does Israel Iceland status influence the variety of foods available to the population, and what is the economic impact of this issue in question?
Well, let's put it this way. When I was born, the variety of food was very limited. These days, you can import everything from everywhere in the on planet. You can bring here, pineapples. You can bring here kiwis, and you don't usually grow here. Papayas, whatever. Okay, so these days this is not an issue. Of course, it is more expensive. Okay, if I buy an apple that was grown in Israel, 1 kilo is much cheaper than to bring 1 kilo of pineapple from I don't know where. Okay, so I don't think that these days we have an issue of variety. We have an issue of costs. And I don't know if you heard about the costs of living in Israel and the demonstrations that take place now in Israel. Part of it is because of the high costs of living. And when I was talking about food insecurity, so part of it is because people have no money, to buy fruits and vegetables. So they buy bread because bread is subsidized, and the cheapest bread, white flour, this is subsidized. So this is what they eat. And they are using or consuming less, nutritious food like fruits, vegetables, and stuff. So it has an economic impact, by all means.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Now is Edna Santana. You are next. Your question, please.
Hi, Edna. As for Israel, drones already. Yes. We have drones, we have all kinds of remote sensings. We're using, specific inspection and specific, as I explained before, if we see on the field that a part is infected, so we send I'm not sending any drone. The farmer is sending a drone and he's spraying the specific area that he sees this infection, instead of spreading all the pesticides all over. So they are used for irrigation. They are used to inspect, also for to understand where you have blooms of flowers, and then you can target the bees. You want the bees, to do the I don't know even how to say it, but the action of the bees. So you can also send the bees to a specific place where you have the flowers, so they can work on these flowers. So yes, the pollination, whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, drones are completely used, and they are feasible and active. You know that these days farmers, they go with their cell phone, and they have all the information from the remote sensing sent to their cell phones, and they can see that something is wrong because part of the field is turning yellow because it wasn't irrigated properly. So the farmer knows that he has to go there and see, because maybe the drip irrigation was clogged. So he's going to this part and he's fixing the this irrigation, and everything goes back. And if the you know that you need to fertilize the crops with the nitrogen, phosphorus, and at the NPK, okay, and therefore you can have you also have sensors in the roots of the crop, and you can know exactly if there is a specific deficit of nitrogen or specific deficit of phosphorus, for example, and then you add this missing component. Orlando,
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adina. Now is Orlando Vilela. It's your question, please.
Good evening, Professors Ofira, Ayalon. Overall, the changes faced by Israel for food productions, which one has been the most challenging?
Most challenging. You're asking about, was it water? Was it energy? Was it like that? This is what you mean?
Yes.
I don't know. I think it was the combination of all the above. It wasn't one major thing that was more, influencing than the other. It was the entire package.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Now is Kojovi Ayana. It's your question, please.
Has the shift? No, I don't think that it has already have an effect. As I said, we import part of the thing. So if we want to eat tomatoes, but there was a problem in growing the tomatoes, so we are importing it. So of course, the diet in Israel, the Mediterranean diet, of course, is based on olive oil and fresh, fruits and vegetables. If there is a problem with olives, as I showed you before, we import olive oil. If we have a problem with growing apples, we import apples. So since we're not a food island, we import. So I don't think that we have already seen any shifts. We do see, however, the other side. We have more and more vegetarians in Israel. More people are more concerned about the issue of climate change and the effect of, the animal production and its effect on climate. So we are #1 in the world in consuming chicken, but the numbers are growing because the population is growing. I think that per capita, it's maybe just slowing a bit, or maybe a steady state of consumption. The total consumption is growing because the population is growing, but I think that per capita we have reached already the peak of animal produce eating.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Lorena, your question?
Question. In the case of Brazil, there is a large production of food, however, with a large consumption of water. I don't know how to anticipate, but I didn't have time to go into the issue of food loss and food waste. And we know that if food loss, when we're talking about food loss, is food loss from production, let's say till the supermarket. And food waste is from the supermarket to our houses, to the restaurants, to hotels, whatever. Now, if food waste in general, so it's food loss plus food waste, was a country, it was the 3rd emitting country of greenhouse gases emissions in the world. So if China is first, the US is second, greenhouse gases emitted from food loss and waste are the 3rd. So this 1/3, look at the reports of the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization. 1/3 of the food produced in the world is lost. So we are investing so much energy and water and the land and you name it, and manpower and women power, you name it. And we're producing food, and then it goes into the supply chain and it goes to a factory and we pack it and we make pasta out of it or rice or whatever, and it comes to our home and we cook the rice and then we throw it away. 1/3 of all these resources that we used are going down the drain, are lost. And if we're talking about spending, and if we're talking about shortage, and if we're talking about means to reduce greenhouse gases emissions, reducing food loss, if you look at Project Drawdown, is there anything where I can write? I don't know, but look for Project Drawdown. The second, so this project is suggesting all kinds of means to reduce greenhouse gases. The second runner-up is reduce food loss along the supply chain. So really the spending of money and resources on producing food that is going to the waste is a waste. So maybe the best way to do is to reduce this losses and of course save money.
Right, thank you. Just take the opportunity to, you've told that some people, more people is turning vegetarian in Israel. It's just, I didn't understand why. It's just because it's a lack of meat or for environmental question? It's okay.
Yes, people are more concerned about these issues. And they understand that by changing their diet, they're going to save the planet.
Right. And we've told about some new protein sources that are coming to...
Alternative, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't specify some, and we have some lectures about insects, and we know about France has a big farm in insects, and England is starting and claim that we will build a bigger one, then is something that is inserted in your diet, in the Israel diet, or is something that will be new, or something that you're planning for the future? What other novel foods or new protein sources are you looking for?
Other proteins. I showed you the red milk. That is one of the possibilities, but it's all about meat. It's all about alternative meat because people like to eat meat.
Yes.
And they are looking now for alternatives. So I think the main issue is really to supplement the meat.
And insects is a reality, something that
yeah. Insects. You're correct. Yeah. It's very late in the evening, so I'm not very concentrated. Yeah, we're talking about insects as well. You know that when the people of Israel they left Egypt, I'm talking 5,000 years ago. Okay, according to the legend. So what they ate was really insects from its yolk. I think it's yolk, what they ate. Okay, the one that, yeah?
A kind of cricket.
So a cricket, a sort of cricket, yeah. So now it's a very highly, so you grow them, they grow very, very fast. I want to bring you something, okay? Can I bring something for just 1 second to show you?
Yeah, sure. Go on.
Just 1 second. 1 second.
Eu acho que ela vai mostrar aí alguma comida ou algum grilo. Orlando, vi que você está na linha da vez. Tudo bem. É bom você escrever também, né? Quando falar e escrever, também deixar escrito.
Tá, vou mandar a pergunta no chat.
Também, tá bom.
Okay, this is the black soldier fly. You see?
Okay, it's ant. Black soldier is a kind of ant, or it's a?
No, it's a fly. It's the larva. It's the larva of the fly.
Okay, it's insect.
I don't know if you can see it. It's a pretty gross.
Okay.
But can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So these guys, they are all dead, okay? But these guys are taking organic food, waste food, and they grow very fast, and they really eat, for example, the cucumber, and then they grow very fast, and then you dry this black soldier fly, and it goes to feeding animals. Okay, so instead of producing high protein to let the animals eat it, you take waste, you let this fly grow, larva grow, and then you feed the larva, you give it to the animals. So this is a very highly protein, and if you want some, you can have. Bon appetit.
Right, that's very nice to know about that. We have several lectures about insects, how they are developing in the world. And here I have some kind of work on that, but it's not a reality, still not a reality.
Yeah, so this is from a factory that produces this larva, and it goes, they export this highly protein larva.
Yes, very nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Orlando has another question. Orlando, please.
Yes, Orlando, please.
Hi. I will send the question in the chat.
Okay. Does this technology in Israel for food production affect the price of food for general population? It is expensive. It is expensive to eat in Israel, but not because of the technology. The technology should make it cheaper, but we are facing now political issues, and this is why now our currency is not very strong, and this is why things are getting more expensive. But this and the inflation rate is getting higher, but this is not because of the technology. The technology is producing more food with less resources. It shouldn't decrease the price of food. So this is not the reason why the price of food is growing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And I was wondering about one of the areas that I work is about valorization of wastes, and I use fungi to produce mushrooms or to produce another product as filters. And how about that industry in Israel? How is it?
There is an industry, not I don't know specifically about their turnover. I don't know. There is an industry dealing with mushrooms, but I really don't know the figures. No.
Right. No worry. Very specific one. Just because it's a very dry place. There's a lack of water, and mushrooms need too much water. Then I suppose that's difficult to grow. But at the same time, there is
but you grow it but you grow the mushrooms in a closed rooms. It's not out in the open. So you need to, of course, to water it and to keep the temperatures. It is expensive if you're talking about resources wise. We grow mushrooms, but I really don't know what is the
right. Thank you. I think we're a great day. It's very nice this time. Thank you for your time, for sharing all your knowledge with us this day. And if you have your last words before we finish, please go on.
I just wish that, I have 4 grandchildren. I just wish that the world will be able to support them when they grow up. Because now we are consuming the resources of the planet as if there is no tomorrow. And it frightens me. So I want you all to be aware of that. And I have to say that I wish also Brazil, you had elections and you have a new president. And as I understand, he is much more into these environmental Amazonas issues, rainforest issues. I hope that he walks the talk and he acts as he speaks, because we need people like that to change, the course of this reckless use of resources. We need to be very conscious about our resources. And this is up to the young generation to do.
Yes, that seems to be that the humanity just start doing something when something is broken, until they go until the edge of the problem. Then when they fall, they start trying to fix it. But before that, it seems to be there no action. Everybody is going to that direction. But well, we hope we could move before that, change before.
Yeah. Before we reach the tipping point,
Yes, that's it. Well, thank you again for your time and for this pleasant
pleasure.
Lecture, and hope to see you next time, maybe next semester with another lecture. And
then we will talk about food waste.
Yes, that will be a great talk.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all. The students will move to another room to continue the class. And thank you, Professor Ayala, for your lecture. Bye.
Bye.